So this is just a theory of mine, and I could be completely off base, but I look at guys like Wellborn who, played on the line, smashing heads all the time in the pros. And, he looks into it a lot, it seems, and seems to, he explained to me once where he was having all these kind of like brain fog issues and everything, and now feeling better. And I looked at my father-in-law, who was played in the NFL for 5 or 6 years, and these guys, it seems like I could be wrong, but maybe the guys that exercise their brain a lot, that it's just like anything else, like any other injury. If you kind of move it and work it, that you can kind of work it out, because it seems like the guys who kind of just like sit back and, sit at a used car lot and use their name, to sell the cars or something, and don't really do shit. They're the ones that always end up, in the really bad situations. But the guys that end up going to like Wall Street and end up becoming they seem to be okay. And so I think it has a lot to do with maybe, using your brain and being active with it, to letting your brain just sit and marinate in whatever happened to it. But an injury,
your brain's a muscle, and there's a lot of research. My in-laws are into this because they're aging. They're getting close to 70, and so they're like, exercise is the number one thing for your brain to just kind of like stave off dementia and Alzheimer's. They said exercise, like even more than like crossword puzzles and Sudokus and like these word games and whatever. Like those are good, but just exercise is actually the best thing, and according to neurosurgeons and their research or whatever. So absolutely, like I think exercise is huge, and also brain exercise, like using it, trying to solve difficult problems. Absolutely, that's gonna.
Well, I think that when you talk about common sense, I think all of this is, everything's kind of theoretical, and then, there'll be some testing and proving things. But when it comes down to it, like Gary Rhino, I have on the show all the time, who talks about not using ice for injuries and moving the body part and getting the blood flow to get everything out to the lymphatic system. When all my friends get COVID, I had it, and I had like a very mild case. And I think a lot of it had to do with the way I treated it. I got lots of sleep. And then when I would not sleep, I would get up and move around, and I would walk to just get my blood flowing, because I was like, I'm not going to sit and let this virus kind of fester inside me and just sit. I'd rather get my blood pumping so that my inflammatory process can kind of work its way through. So I went on like a bunch of like big walks. I'd go out into the middle of the woods and just like walk forever. And I was over it in like 2 days. And it could have been that I just had a mild case.
Yeah.
Or that, but that was my recommendation. A lot of people are like, I just lay in bed, like my wife did, for like a week. And I was like, get up and move. I think moving, and I think that goes with don't overdo it when you have a cold, but like get your blood flowing, and then rest when you can, like sleep, get 10, 12 hours of sleep. But when you're up, move your body.
Yeah.
And
That sounds very anecdotal, but I think there's a lot of truth to it. Like there's people who just say, I never get sick, and they almost never get sick. It's almost like if you live in this state of denial that a virus is going to get the better of you, then you're going to do pretty well. And there's people who there's hypochondriacs. It's like a real thing. But then there's people that we know who they're always saying like, oh, I always get sick. My so and so never gets sick, but I always get the worst. And it's like, you probably shouldn't say that. That's probably why you get really sick.
I mean,
I'm not a rocket scientist, but no, I had a nasty injury on my knee. This is like not a virus, but I did an O course doing CrossFit training with my team, and one of the obstacles like kind of malfunctioned, and like this log fell on the side of my knee, and just had this huge like softball size bruise on the inside of my knee. And the next weekend I did a Spartan race, and I literally like took Monday off. I did some stuff Tuesday, Wednesday, just did what I could, what kind of felt good. And my leg was like all black and blue, the whole inside of it. But it wasn't like, it was painful to push on like a bruise, but it like I could bend my knee just fine. And I did a 13-mile Spartan race with compression pants. And the next day, all the black and blueness was gone. Like it was 100% healed. And it was either the compression pants or it was because I did basically aerobic exercise for like 5 hours and just kept pumping the blood through my body.
Yeah.
And it cleared everything out. And I was like, shit, if I had seen a doctor with that bruise, they would have said to elevate it and ice it and not do anything else. And it probably would have been purple for like 2 weeks. So yeah, I don't think icing's. I think icing's good for lowering like your core body temperature. Like ice plunges, that's a whole different animal though.
Yeah.
But yeah, putting ice on an injury, I'm 100% with you. I think that's like an old school thing that doctors used to prescribe. I think it's total horseshit. I think you should do the opposite. I think you should like get out and do shit.
I can't believe how much they still prescribe it too. Like there's so many things that doctors do that just baffle me. Like when they say ice it or rest ice compression elevation, and it's like, it's been proven that's not right. And then like stuff like antibiotics for colds when they know it's a virus. Mm-hmm. They know it's a virus and they're like, yeah, here, take a course of antibiotics and
just get you out of the office.
What? Yeah. Well, I have a buddy that's a doctor and he's like, dude, you don't understand. He's like, people bug you so much that it's just the easiest way. And he goes,
they'll come after you. They'll be like, I'm going to sue you because you won't give me like people are crazy. They just get in their head that they need antibiotics.
My sister's my sister got COVID. She's like a year older than me. And she ran out and made them get her like Paxlovid or whatever the new antiviral was. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why? She's like, it's, and she was like quadruple vaxxed, like 2 boosters. And I'm like, well, you took 2 boosters. You still got it. You got it worse than I got it. And then you took an antiviral and you think those medicines are going to like, I'm not saying I don't believe in the vaccine. I think it does lower, but like, what, why, why are you so quick to run to like a medicine that
should have took some horse dewormer? She would have been fine.
I know. Seriously. I almost had to take,
man.
I almost had to take ivermectin. I thought I got like a parasite in Costa Rica. This thing came out of a fucking worm came out of my nose. A worm came out of my nose.
That would freak me the fuck out.
So then the next day I had the worst headache I've ever had. So I had the headache. The worm came out. The headache went away.
Oh,
then
my God.
Then the next day I got this thing where I just walk out of my house and I started to like, it was like I was on mushrooms or something. Like everything got really bright. And then I couldn't like, I went and took my contact lenses out. I'm like, it was like my eyes were too strong. I freaked out and I told my wife to take me to the emergency room. I'm like, and I thought I had like one of those brain eating amoebas or something. I was like, something's happening. So on the way to the emergency room, I go, stop. My eye doctor's right there. And he's like a buddy of mine. I go in there. So he tested my eyes right away. And he goes, no, you had this thing called an aurora or an aura. I think it's called an aura. And he's like, it's just like, usually people have it after a sinus headache. And he's like, you'll probably never get it again in your life. No big deal. And I was like, okay, I'm not going to the emergency room. I was like, I'm good.
Weird. At least there's a name for it. I thought he was just going to tell you you're a dipshit. And
no. So then I had the worm
came out of your nose.
No, I had the worm tested too. And the doctor goes,
oh, okay.
I go, what is it? He goes, we don't know. I go, what do you mean you don't know? He goes, it's not a worm. I go, well, what is it? He goes, I don't know. But I was surfing for like 6 hours a day. And I just feel like something swam up my nose.
Oh God, probably did. Oh
yeah.
That's freaky.
Especially if you just start going down the wormhole and start reading shit that people get in like third world countries. And you're like,
yeah. Don't get on WebMD.
No. No, man, I was like, I was freaking out,
Yeah, that
I
sounds
think
terrible. Well, I
but I
brought
think the
COVID back to Nevada.